On this AVNation special, we're coming to you live from Crestron Masters 2021. We sit down with a number of programmers and integrators talking about the commercial applications of Crestron's brand new announcements. All that and more next on this AVNation special.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is an AVNation special, live from Crestron Masters 2021, Commercial Applications. This time Albright with an AVNation special coming to you basically live from Crestron Masters 2021 with me right now to talk about the commercial side of what we've learned after today's keynote. First and foremost, our buddy Mr. Brad Hinsey from Crestron Electronics. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you. Also with us is Rebecca Criswell. Rebecca is from AVI SPL. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Also with us is Tony Carafa. Tony is from Amplified Design out in LA.
Hi, Tim. Glad to be here.
And last but not least, normally Andy would be on the other side of the state from me. I'm in New Jersey, which is kind of cool. But Andy Jones from Kansas City with Fish Tech Group. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Brad, we'll start with you on this. When it comes to a number of technology companies that you had in the keynote address for everybody from Microsoft, Samsung, Zoom. When you look at what you guys kind of unveiled today, there's a lot of things in there for the enterprise, right? For the folks in the IT departments. What do you want the biggest takeaway to be from today's keynote and these announcements today?
Well, I think the biggest thing is there's so much opportunity ahead for our industry as we embrace this hybrid working model. We can't go back to the way things were pre-pandemic. We've learned a lot working through the pandemic, going to our homes, working from our homes, working primarily on our laptops, learning what that is like. We should retain some of those good things that we've learned and bring those into the future. One of those things that, Ilya and I for Microsoft spoke about was the importance and the value of having a dedicated secondary device that we use for our video conferencing is such a great way to unshackle us from our laptops, give us more flexibility and freedom in our conversations, and make it so much easier to get our work done. And so we have our Teams phones, but people do it on their mobile phone. They do it on a tablet, those kinds of things. So I think those are little elements of enabling the hybrid work opportunity that we're excited about. So that's just one of them. I think there are several others that we could, I'm sure those on this call have been thinking about as well.
Yeah, absolutely, those dedicated devices. Andy, talk for a second internally there at Fish Tech, some of the things that you guys were able to do as we're coming out of COVID, basically post-COVID, when we finally eventually get there, what you guys are doing to kind of use Crestron to support that hybrid model.
Yeah, so, I think we were actually ahead of the curve and not knowing it because we were already kind of a hybrid workspace. About half of our workforce was already in other states. So when we set up our offices originally, we had a lot of dedicated Zoom rooms, and then we also have rooms that are Mercury's, and they're set up in a fashion that you can take any platform into the room. But the one thing we did have to do in that pivot of bringing everybody back is that we had to remove some chairs from some of our offices because the employees that came back, not all of them were comfortable going right into a conference room with 12 people right on top of each other. And that posed a challenge because, we still have board meetings that need 12 plus people. So, one of the things what we did was we took our EBC space and we actually converted it into a makeshift conference room. And I was able to easily take a Crestron Flex device and set up a screen in there and just kind of create this ad hoc conference room where people are still 6 feet apart, but I can have 12 to 14 people in there.
Very cool. Rebecca, we'll start with you on this. What are you hearing from your customers, the folks that are actually actively making these plans? We're recording this towards the end of April. Depending on where you are, at least in the U.S., and obviously depending on where you are in the world, will kind of dictate, your company and your regions, back to work. What are you hearing from your clients as they're doing this work for now, trying to get their employees back to work? What are you hearing back from them as far as, what that hybrid workspace looks like for them?
Well, I think it's a little bit, what Andrew was talking about is they definitely want them back, but it's not everybody's comfortable. So we've got to bring them back and then make it as easy as possible for them not to touch things. I mean, everybody wants to go touchless. We've got to plan around the sanitation schedule. We've got to plan around our spaces. If there is the device that goes down, we need to be able to fix it without actually going in the room because we have to social distance and we don't want to touch. So they're all anxious. My schools want to get back together and have kids on campus because that's money for them. I think that's a big thing that we're seeing is people coming back. There's the new norm. They want them there because I think a lot of them have said that they want people to be able to talk and collaborate and be a bonding. We've all gotten used to these screens here, and it's just not the same. And so they need the people to come back to be creative again. And not only that, let's face it, some people aren't really good at working from home, and they know that. I mean, they know that they're out doing the laundry. My neighbor here mows his lawn. I don't know how he's still employed after what I'm watching him do. And so,
don't tell people where he works either, Rebecca.
I won't. So I see that, but the technology is great. It's made it better for all of us for those exact same reasons. Is that we don't have to go in to fix it. We can convince them that we don't have to hold microphones. We don't have to hold a remote anymore. We're touchless. It's an app. I can do a Teams meeting. I can do a Zoom meeting. And I can do it from my car. I can do it from the bedroom. I can do it from the office.
Tony, talk for a second about Amplified Design is a CSP, a Crestron certified service provider. Years ago, it used to be called CAPES. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. Independent programmers, though, talk for a second about something that Rebecca said about getting us to and getting the workforce to that touchless, that automation. That is kind of the power of the programmer, right? Being able to anticipate and work with the clients to see, hey, when you touch this button, all of these things happen. Or when you walk into a space and they're able to detect, you're here because you scheduled this room, so X, Y, and Z can happen. Talk for a second about how folks that in other CSPs can help us as the workforce get back into it safely by providing some of these these automation tools.
Yeah, Tim, there's a lot of elements to that. We talk about programming, and that's one of them. That's one component that we can provide with different, devices in the room, mainly occupancy sensors and devices like that to automate room operations. But there's a lot that's built in to some of the native Crestron hardware, into the Flex hardware, and these purpose-built devices that offer some of these same features without programming required. And that's kind of what's interesting is where I'm positioned as a CSP. We're programmers, but the demand that I've had for my company for Flex systems, for designing them, for implementing them has been huge. And we've got a lot of business by working as a subject matter experts for our customers and helping them determine how they want to roll out their UC environment, how they want to build out their conference rooms, how they want to augment their huddle spaces. And there's just a lot that can be done with native hardware and then augmented by programming. So there's a lot that we offer there.
Well, and Brad, talk about that for a second, because we mentioned this. You and I were on the fireside chat after the keynote about the fact that the Crestron is you guys have been known for control, but your innovation over the last 20, 30 years has really given you the opportunity to kind of even become beyond that, beyond just control. Talk about the power of embedding some of those automation tools into your hardware, like Tony says, that where you don't have to have the programming required.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that the evolution of our industry is moving into faster, easier, more reliable deployments. And so when you can build in some of those control capabilities into the product, you simplify some of the configuration of that, then you can go and deploy more of these systems at scale. Some of the things like with XIO Cloud, where you're able to templatize some of those deployments and do them much more quickly. That's part of bringing more and more of the sophistication and capabilities across all of these other devices, because our customers expect really great experiences, expect all these things to work together. And so by adding these capabilities across all of the different product lines, it's easier for us to bring it to life and make that happen, of course.
Andy, one of the things that was touched on a number of times in the keynote was the agnostic flexibility of the technology that Crestron's introducing. How important is that flexibility in making sure that the things that you guys are putting in place is platform agnostic?
Well, again, it's very important because we have clients all over the nation that prefer one certain platform, and some of their policies in their companies say, we can only hold meetings with this particular platform. And if we provided only one platform to our users, that may keep us from getting business. So I like to have it set up to where it's not designated. They can choose which platform they need to be using.
Rebecca, when you start talking to clients about this very thing, about making sure that several different codecs or several different pieces of software can be used, you can use the same kind of hardware. Why do they think that flexibility? Why do they feel that flexibility is important to them and to their workspace?
Well, I think because some of the things, it's the IT support that has to support that behind them, so they have to be familiar with it, and being able to have that flexibility is that part, and then just rolling it out. I mean, the deployment of this it's got to be super easy.
All right, Tony, last question about this whole agnostic thing is when you go into a system like this, you go into a client site, when you look at, either when you're programming it and or deploying it, when you start troubleshooting and start looking at the various types of platforms, how is it that you're able to say, what, at the end of the day, when I sign off on this, I'm 90%, 99% sure that we're going to get that agnostic connectivity? Is it the fact that the hardware is consistent and the hardware is able to kind of speak several different languages, or is it something else?
Well, I mean, that's always a challenge, is being able to accommodate all the different users. And it really starts with kind of the client management with the customer, and getting a sense of, what is your business, who are your employees, who's using the space, and how are they using the space, and then kind of getting an understanding of what we need to support in those spaces, and also kind of like what their vision is, what their roadmap is, because a lot of companies are transitioning to Teams, for example, and so. But they've got the stragglers that, we still need to join a WebEx meeting, and we still need to support BYOD. So how do we support that? And then obviously between Mac and PC and how all those things fit together. So it's never going to be perfect, but you got to shoot for that, like 90%. Like, what is 90% of this use case? Who are the people using the room the most, and what are they doing? Let's make sure that's rock solid, and then we'll see how we can accommodate the other requests outside of that, and kind of just build in that direction and design in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Brad, you guys are involving the NVX platform. DMNAX is an audio platform, audio distribution, that also incorporates a lot of streaming capabilities. Talk for a second about what you guys were kind of envisioning. Obviously, you've got to play here when it comes to residential, but in light commercial, hospitality, restaurants, and stuff like that, there's also certainly a vertical here that you guys can kind of attack. Talk for a second about the business case for distributed audio in various commercial applications.
Well, yeah, clearly audio is such an important component about, in many of those businesses, restaurants, even hotel lobbies, all those other kinds of installations. And so we wanted to deliver the audio only experience on the same network with our hardware. And so really enabling an integrator with our tools today to be able to deploy audio and video and audio only applications was really important, right? And bringing all of that in together.
Andy, let's talk about not just the audio portion, but the AV over IP, which has been a fairly hot topic for roughly 10 years ish. Where do you guys at FishTech see this kind of going when it comes to making sure that the network is solid, make sure that the network is up, but also that it's able to deliver these high quality audio and video streams?
Yeah, so I do have NVX and Dante currently set up at FishTech, and the one thing I have learned is that network backbone is very important to be able to carry those signals. We use it right now for distributed audio, just like Brad mentioned, in our lobby and that kind of thing. But I guess that's all I have on that.
All right, that works. Rebecca, what are you hearing from your clients when they're giving you feedback when it comes to AV over IP over the next couple of years?
They're very excited about it. Anything, anywhere type of thing. It's just all about the bandwidth. That's the network, and the bandwidth is what I warn them on. And we've got to do a good look over and checks and balances before we start running it over the network, and who's responsible, and can it, there are just so many different rabbit holes that you can go down on that. We've really got to make sure that we look at all very closely and make sure it's the right way to do it.
Yeah. Tony, you've deployed a number of systems, both secure locations and I'm going to say regular locations, in other words, locations that aren't
unsecured.
Let's say national security aren't involved. When you look at some of these deployments, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to come over and had to overcome, and how do you walk the client through that?
Well, I mean, there's two elements to that. If we're talking about NVX, this would always be a segregated AV built a network that we build. Yeah. We've never done anything on a secure network that we would place NVX equipment on. The conversation is interesting when you talk about AV over IP. It depends who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to end users or stakeholders, they love it. If you're talking to IT, they recoil in fear, because it's more for them to deal with. You know what I mean?
Really quickly, go down that rabbit hole, because why do they? Because I've heard that before, right? They recoil. They say it's not on my network, right? Not in my backyard.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why is that still?
Well, the IT departments, whether they're internal or they're managed service providers, they're tasked with, they're often overloaded with what they have to take care of, and they're tasked with specific things. And they're dealing with, Andy can attest to this, in secure environments, they've got a lot to deal with. And when you come in and you say, hey, I got to get my TV connected, they're just going, what is this? I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to know what it is. Get it off my network. So those conversations are tricky, and we've really had to learn how to have those conversations. It's it's speaking another language. As integrators, how many languages do we speak, right? So we have to know how to talk to customers and end users and IT. So learning how to speak to IT is critical. So that's one thing we've really, since NVX, it's just you have to know that language and speak to these IT professionals and say, here's my device. Here's why it needs to go on the network. Here's what it does. Here's the deployment guide. Here's the ports. Here's the configurations. How do you want to manage it? It's your network, not mine. So, how do you want to handle this on your network? And if you approach it very gently, you're often met with some acceptance to that. And then once they get it, they think it's great. Once they get what it does and how it works, and that it's not going to blow up their network, and just got to give me a VLAN. I promise you it's going to be okay. I can walk you through this. Once we get to that point, then they're on board. So it's just that confluence of AV and IT that we're seeing, that nobody likes change. So these IT departments just, IoT devices, they hear this stuff and they don't want to deal with it. But it's a confluence. It's a merge that's happening. It's happening for us. We're not just AV professionals anymore. We're IT professionals. It just is what it is. So we have to learn how to play in their world, and they're slowly coming around to ours. And we've made a lot of progress in the last year. So that's, it's all how you have the conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping those ports are incredibly important. Brad, we were talking about this for a second about the XIO Cloud, some of the announcements you guys made today. The all new network enabled products; those are going to be sensors, sensory providing devices on the network for the XIO platform. What kind of drove that design decision and the demand for the cloud management and giving all those sensory and giving all that feedback back?
Well, as much as we'd love all the technology in a room to be Crestron only, it won't, right? And you will have displays, you will have other pieces of technology that will be in a room. And we wanted XIO Cloud to be able to manage and monitor and see all of those things and ensure that they're all on the network. So naturally, that pushes us into this place where we need to have a broad ecosystem of supported products. So, Andy talked about Samsung. Now that Samsung is natively integrated with XIO Cloud, it's shipping in their firmware, in their commercial displays. That helps deliver to the integrators and their customers, a level of comfort in choosing certain products, right? But it gives everybody visibility on what's connected. Is it up and running? Can I reboot it? All this data and information and insight around how that technology is functioning within a room is really important. So that's why we were pushing it down that path, and we're opening up even more ways of connecting some of those products as well.
Yeah, I also want to point out something. This is not Crestron's first foray into partnering with other folks, and this is 10, 15 years ago. There was a program that Crestron had called Crestron Inside, and it's where you could pick up an Epson projector, right, or an NEC projector at that time, and you could drop that sucker into a Crestron Simple Windows program as a module, right, and run a network drop to the Epson projector, let's say, and it was already there, right? So this is not Crestron doing something new. You guys have been doing this for a number of years, working with other manufacturers, getting them on into your system and onto your network, which I think is fascinating. Andy, when it comes to the XIO Cloud, talk for a second about that deployment that you did at Fishtech and how XIO Cloud is able to help you kind of really evolve the deployment you've done there at Fishtech and that evolution over the last couple of years of using XIO Cloud.
Yeah, Brad hit the nail on the head there too. I mean, monitoring and alerting, that's the biggest thing. If we can know before the big meeting that, maybe there's an issue in the room, maybe we can get in there and fix it, or, maybe we can schedule that meeting in another room. So we're always striving for that in our IT department, not just with AV, I mean, with everything within our facilities, our network switches, internet, everything, our servers. We have servers running. We want to know up down status of all that, and we need that notification. And then the other thing I spoke on earlier was the security patches and firmware updates. XIO Cloud makes that simple with any Crestron device. I mean, I can essentially select all and say, at 2 o'clock in the morning, let's push this new firmware update out, and then I don't have to interrupt anybody in the conference or anybody using the equipment at that point in time. So,
very good. Rebecca, when it comes to having all of these devices that are going to be XIO enabled, how does that change not only your design philosophy when it comes to putting up new systems, but also how you're able to communicate that to your clients? The fact that these devices now will all be on this cloud network.
Yeah, it's one single platform that we can monitor it, and the fact that the natively monitor it. I've done very little with XO. I've sold a lot of it, but I have the brains behind me who add to it. But from everything that I've heard, I know it's got to integrate natively. Does it do Crestron products and other products? Single platform. Those are the things that they want to know about when you're working with the IT folks.
Absolutely. Tony, you'll have the last word on this. How will this change from a programmer's point of view, but also kind of a designer point of view, in the devices that you're putting your hands on every day? How does this move to keeping everything native to XIO Cloud? How will this change kind of your go-to programming strategy when it comes to the programming architecture?
Well, programming is part of it, but maintenance is huge. XIO is kind of a no-brainer at this point that I feel like should be included in every sale to a customer, an existing customer, a new customer, because that's just so much value, and the value add to that product is huge. By having that in place, we're getting asked a lot about service level agreements these days, because you've got your traditional spaces, but now we're putting stuff in every huddle room, everywhere. We've got scheduling panels, all these things, and And these AV enterprises are too large to be managed by a small IT or AV department if it exists, or by, as I mentioned before, an already overwhelmed IT department. So we're being asked a lot for service level agreements, and XIO is the key to that, really, because now I can monitor everything. And I've done a ton of work in Fusion for years. I love Fusion. He's done work with Fusion as well. You know what it's like. It exists. It's great. We still love it. But the UX of XIO, the capabilities that just are what they demoed today, some of the things that I saw, just makes it a perfect solution for any SLA, any managed services, and that's gonna be huge for us from a maintenance standpoint. So that's what I'm looking at.
Brad, I do actually want to ask you one kind of final one here. Andy and Tony and Rebecca, all three have talked about this. You guys talked about it in your keynote. We kind of hit on it a little bit in our fireside, and that is the IT-ness, the IT move from an AV standpoint. And Tony just hit there the SLAs, right, the service level agreement. Talk as a final word here. What Crestron sees as giving, the AV dealer and also the end users kind of that power, that IT power, to make sure that they're able to kind of do this next evolution, this next iteration of AV into more and more of the world of IT.
Yeah, I think, Tony talked about this a little bit. The AV industry has been pulled into the IT industry, right? Where we were standing on our own before. Now it's so deeply integrated, you really cannot separate them at all. So previously, you would have never had a tool like XIO Cloud, right? That's actually a tool that came from the IT industry that is now connecting into our AV products. And so that is a really great manifestation of that. The next level of that is really creating that scale and automation around deployment, right? And taking more of those IT processes of being able to just push a button and have a room configured, deployed, and ready to go. And then you have to go in and just plug in a product, and you don't need to do anything else. That's all set. Those are some of the places where I think we'll see more and more advances built on platforms like XIO Cloud. They're integrating into other IT tools like ServiceNow, right? So that we can take and do more of the things that the IT industry has learned over the last several decades of managing that IT infrastructure, adding that sophistication on top of our AV products, through new workflows, more data and insights, maybe even creating our own dashboards, right, using APIs from XIO Cloud. I think that's really a huge opportunity for our Crestron ecosystem, where you might have spent a lot more time programming a Crestron product alone. Now you can take some of those skills. You can still do the programming. Now you're doing more programming in the web around these tools, dashboard, automated workflows as well. And that's a really great opportunity that I think we all need to kind of focus more of our energy around.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a significant power with that. So, all right. Thank you all so much. Rebecca Criswell from AVI SPL. Thank you. How do people connect with you or AVI SPL?
Well, it's Rebecca Criswell at avispl.com. And I'm located here in the Tampa Bay area in Florida, but our offices were global. So avispl.com is our website. So give us a call or look us up on the web. Be glad to help you.
Absolutely. Tony Carafa from Amplified Design, sir. How do people connect with you or Amplified?
Yeah, our website is amplifieddesign.com. You can check us out there. We do design, programming, field commissioning services. We're in Southern California, but we cover anywhere you need us to go.
And then we've talked about this a lot where, we can, not only can we all work remotely, programmers can work remotely, and we're getting more and more to where, as Rebecca said, we can actually fix these products, remotely. So absolutely. Andy Jones, thank you, sir, from over in Fish Tech and my neck of the woods. How do people connect with you in Fish Tech?
Yeah, so our website is fishtech.group, and they can reach out directly to me at andy.jones@fishtech.group.
Very good. And Brad, thank you, sir, so much for having us for having us for this keynote and today. How do people connect with you in Crestron?
Crestron.com, obviously, but you can also find me on LinkedIn as Brad Hinsey. And you can also email me directly, bhinsey@crestron.com as well.
All right, very good. Thank you all so much. For AVNation, go by our website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including a conversation similar to this, only with the residential side. We'll bring in John Clancy and talk with a couple of the residential dealers as well. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv.